What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're bringing you the deck that you've been requesting the most, and I took some time just because I wanted to make sure that the card that I was waiting for in the ban list would go to 3, and it happened. Fusion Destiny is back to 3, so now we're presenting to you the new competitive hero build for the format, because I feel like this format is a bit more rough for heroes compared to what it was before we got Power of the Elements, because the new decks are just so much stronger than Branded Despia and they're so much more difficult counter, but I still feel like heroes have a place in the meta and can do some insane stuff against the decks, because we all know cards like Darklo against Tearlaments, they're extremely powerful. Plasma against decks like Sprite can be very hurtful, so this deck still has the tools to compete. It's just going to take a little bit more effort than the previous format, but I'm going to show you the list that I'm using in the current format. So if you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So let's start with the elemental heroes. We play of course 3 copies of Stratos. I don't think I would ever play less than 3 unless I'm playing a build like with Neospatians and stuff like that, where I do have a normal summon like Connector. If I'm playing a version of heroes that I want to make it as competitive as possible, I'm playing 3 copies of Stratos, because being able to normal summon it, get your Faris, also being able to pop back or going second, it's much more important than normal summoning a Vion, because the problem with Vion is that it's a card that if it gets stopped, then your entire play gets stopped because you're not going to be able to have the Faris for a follow-up. But if your opponent Veilers or Ashes your Stratos, if you have a way to get access to Faris, you can still do your play because you have not used your Vion yet. So this is why Stratos is a much better normal summon than Vion, because the moment Vion gets Veilered or Ashed, then it most likely is the end of your play unless you have Fusion Destiny or something like that in hand. So this is why I feel like Stratos is the best 3 of play for your normal summon in the deck. We play 2 copies of Shadow Mist. This is pretty standard as well. I would not play more copies or less copies. I would side out 1, yes, but for the game 1, you usually need 2 copies to be able to grind. Going second in game 2 and 3, you can basically supplement the second copy of this card with side deck cards that are going to make their job much easier, go for an OTK or to lock your opponent down completely. But game 1, where you don't know what you're going to be playing against, you need the second copy in order to be able to grind a couple more turns. And with Hero Lives being also at 3 right now, Shadow Mist is such a powerful card, because again, Darklo is a beast, especially against Tearlaments. If you can protect it, there's nothing your opponent. We play 1 copy of Liquid Soldier, again another card that I would not play more of. Some people play 2, but I feel like if you play the deck correctly, you don't really need to play the second one, because you're going to use this one's effect twice regardless. The only reason you would use the effect once is when you poly and Miracle Fusion the same turn, only when you're going for the OTK. If you're not going for the OTK, Miracle Fusioning the same turn you've used this card's effect already from your hand to fuse for polymerization is wrong, because you're going to miss out on a draw 2 and you're going to miss out on a lot of the grind deck's potential. So you just keep this card in the grave turn 1 and then you Miracle Fusion again next turn, unless you're trying to go for an OTK going second, then that's a reason to be able to use this card twice to fuse it for the same turn, even if you're not going to get draw 4. For the Destiny Hero lineup, we played 2 copies of Malicious. This is the only card left in the ban list, hero related, that is at 2 or even less. So yeah, I don't feel like Konami is ever going to bring this card back to 3, because we know the history of Malicious. Every time it comes back to 3, then after a couple formats, it's just going back to no matter what. And this is why they gave us the next card, which is the 1 copy of Denier. This is basically a supplementary copies of Malicious for just heroes. They found a way to give more than 2 copies of Malicious for just heroes, which was a good thing on Konami's part, because this card is incredible. Denier being able to recycle Malicious infinitely as you use it correctly with Cross Crusader, and also being able to give you an extra body on the field to fuse for Enforcer with just polymerization is amazing. We play 1 copy of Plasma. This is another card that I would never cut from the deck, even if I'm not playing D-Force, which I'm not in this build. I still feel like this card is really good, especially going second, because this card is the way to crack boards going second the most easily, because all the other effects they're going to be expected against some, but there's no way to expect Plasma, because you know that if your opponent expects, they will not let you have 3 monsters on the field, which is not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, when your opponent is playing against heroes, they expect cards like Darklo and Enforcer, but Plasma is the card that always catches them off guard going second, and if you absorb a powerful monster, you can just steamroll them with this card. And yeah, having another Destiny hero in the deck also means that you're going to be able to resolve Fusion Destiny twice, because you are using 4 Destiny heroes turn 1 for your combos, which is the 2 copies of Malicious, the 1 copy of Denier, and the next card I'm going to show you. So having this card in the deck, even if you do not end up summoning it, you can still make use of it by using it for another monster to summon with Fusion Destiny, by sending this to the grave with a dark monster to summon dangers. And the last Destiny hero is the 1 copy of Dark Angel. Now, Dark Angel is not as impactful as it used to be in the Branded Despia format. Before, it was used to completely shut down their strategy to make sure that they will not be able to use the engine of the deck altogether, but now it's more of an answer to cards that the deck just automatically loses to. It's an answer to cards like Super Poly and Dark Ruler No More, which the deck does not have an out to, so you need to play Dark Angel in order to be able to play around those cards, because we all know that even though people do not play Nibiru anymore in this format, Super Poly is a much more powerful card against this deck. There is no way to play around it, so this is why you need to play Dark Angel in the deck just to have a chance to stop those cards. So even if your opponent has more outs to Dark Angel now than they used to be because they are playing link monsters, you can make sure that they don't link it away by other methods, by destroying the monster they normal summon with Enforcer or with another card that I'm playing in the deck and I'm going to show you later. But again, you need to play Dark Angel in the deck in order to not lose to cards like Dark Ruler No More and Super Poly. And for the Vision heroes, you play 3 copies of Faris. That's pretty standard. It's the best extender of the deck. You discard a hero, you summon it, get increase in the spell and trap zone, you summon increase, you summon Vion. Everybody knows that stuff by now. We play 2 copies of Vion. With 3 Stratos, you're going to play 2 Vion, and I feel like it's the best ratio. You don't need 3 Vion in this particular version of the deck. If you were playing a build with 3 D4s and trying to turbo out Plasma, that's when the normal summoning of Vion makes more sense, because you want to go for Beatrice to send Break the Destiny from the deck to the graveyard so you don't get Lock Faris, but we are not doing any of that in this build, so we play only 2 copies of Vion, and we also play 1 copy of Increase. Again, 1 copy is correct. If you play 2, you're just asking to break more. Yes, when you draw the 1, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt as badly as for other engines like it did in the past. For example, 3 Brilliant Fusion with 1 Garnet, or 3 Scorpio with 1 Cobra. Back then, when you drew those cards, your entire engine was dead, and people were still playing 1 copy. And in this particular deck, your engine is not dead if you draw this 1 copy of Increase, so there is even less reason to play more than 1 Increase, so this is why 1 is always going to be correct. Now let's get to the spells. We have 3 copies of Fusion Destiny, fresh off the ban list. With Anaconda banned, nobody's going to use this card. Maybe some daring people in decks like Sky Striker are going to take the 60-40 chance ratio to go for Enforcer, but again, it's not going to be anything nearly as consistent as it was with Anaconda, because any 2 monsters could lead to an Enforcer back then. So yeah, this card at 3 for this particular deck means a lot. It's basically another extender that is not going to get you only Enforcer on the field, but it's going to get you the materials you need in the grave to set up the Dark Angel play with just 1 copy of a card. So this is why Fusion Destiny is really good, and going second can help you push through a lot of boards, so it's very difficult to counter this deck when it comes to hand traps, because if you hand trap Stratos, they might have a Vion, they might have a Faris in the hand to get the Vion. If you hand trap Increase or Vion, then you might have the Mask Chains or the Fusion Destiny to go for Dark Lore Enforcer. So yeah, it's very difficult to counter this deck hand traps, which is why if we make sure that we don't lose to cards like Super Poly and Dark Ruler No More with Dark Angel, it makes the deck very difficult to count. We play 3 copies of Hero Lives, another amazing card. If you don't have a copy of Mask Change in your hand, you're always going to go for Shadow Mist. If you already have a Mask Change, you're going to go for Stratos. If your opponent ashes this card, then you can activate it again, because it's only if you control no monsters. It's not once per turn. An amazing card. We play 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army to search a level 4 lower warriors. We play 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Some people do not play this card in Heroes, and I really don't understand why. This card is amazing. It gets you access to Faris, which is the best extender, by sending Shadow Mist to the grave and searching. And if you already have what you need to go for the Faris, you can just send either Malicious or Denier, whichever one you're missing, to go for the full play. So I really don't get why people don't play this card, Heroes. Some people have caught up and are actually playing it, but I want to see every single list of heroes playing this card, because it's absolutely necessary for this build, because it gives you so much value. Sometimes you can even send Liquid Soldier, if you have hard drawn Miracle Fusion, to go for the draw 2 and also summon your Absolute Zero on the field. It's an amazing card. We play 2 copies of Polymerization. I've explained in the past why I'm playing 2. This card is not bad to draw. It can sometimes act as a really good extender, especially when your hands are a bit weird, but also being able to search this card twice throughout the duel, especially game 1. It's the same logic with the second Shadow Mist. It can help you grind a couple more turns. Yes, you can side out 1 games 2 and 3 when your side deck is going to put a lot of work to be able to deal with your opponent's deck, but when you're going in blind, you need these extra copies of cards that you can search to be able to grind just a couple more turns to make sure that you can. We play 1 copy of Miracle Fusion to search with our Sunrise, of course. This card is really good because, again, it helps you draw 4 cards with Liquid Soldier throughout the duel, because it activates even when it gets banished for a fusion summon. Really, really good. We play 3 copies of Mask Chains. Dark Law is an auto win against tier elements if you can play around cards like Super Poly with Dark Angel, so you absolutely need to max out their chances. But even against decks like Sprite, this card can hurt a lot, because now they're playing Runic Sprite, so you're going to be able to get rid of the fountain as many times as possible, so you need to go for Acid, and you need to go for Stratos popping effects, so they always will need to waste one of their cards to be able to recycle the fountain, so this is why this card is also really good against that deck as well. We are playing 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet. The reason I'm playing Droplet instead of Dark Ruler No More is because now some tier elements, they're trying to play around Super Poly by ending on Abyss Dweller and Kaleido Hearts, so this deck does lose Dweller a lot, because you're not able to activate Liquid, you're not able to activate Shadow Mist, Denier, Malicious. All of this advantage comes from your graveyard. If you are not able to activate all of these effects, then you will not be able to do much, so this is why you need to stop Dweller, and Dark Ruler No More unfortunately cannot do that, because they're going to shotgun Dweller during the standby phase, so Forbidden Droplet in this particular deck makes more sense than a lot of other decks. If you're playing a deck that does not lose to Dweller, then Dark Ruler No More is of course a better card, but in this particular deck, Droplet makes more sense, and also the discard sometimes can be be helpful by discarding cards like Malicious and Shadow Mist to get more searches and extenders. We play 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. We need an out to Mystic Mine because the deck does not have an inherent out to Mystic Mine. The only way to play around it if your opponent activates it on your board is to destroy it with Phoenix Enforcer, but if they have another one or a way to get around Phoenix Enforcer's effect, then you're going to get screwed. So you need to have a main deck out to Mystic Mine, but also Cosmic Cyclone in this particular format is not only meant for Mystic Mine, because again, with Runics, Fountain is going to be on the field for the entire game, and if you don't deal with it very early, your opponent is going to draw so many cards that it's not going to be easy to keep up with them. So this is why Cosmic Cyclone is not just a mine out, it's a really good card to have in the main deck altogether. And we have 1 copy of Call by the Grave because it's a broken card. It's not nearly as broken because it stops hand traps, but because it stops anything from the graveyard. When your opponent activates the Tearlament's effects in the grave by chaining this card, you're going to screw them so much because they will not have the extenders and the value that they're going to get for the free fusion. And of course it stops hand trap on top of it, but again, the deck is not very easy to hand trap against. The only hand trap that can hurt a lot sometimes is Draw the Lockbird. Not a lot of people play this card right now, so this is why you don't really care about hand traps, especially because Droll and Nibiru are not part of the meta. But again, Call by the Grave is a broken card, so even in a format where nobody plays any hand traps, you're still going to play Call by the Grave because of how broken it is. And we do play 1 trap in the deck, and that's Rivalry of Warlords. We do max it out, and the reason of that is not only because it's a good card against the current meta on its own, because of course against Tearlaments and against Runic Sprite, this card on its own is really good, but the main purpose of this card is to make sure that your opponent does not link away your Dark Angel. When you give them a Dark Angel and you flip the Rivalry on top of them, they are stuck to having only warriors on the field, and you're going to have all your monsters in defense mode, so they're not going to be able to crash the Dark Angel, and if they can't summon anything, they will not be able to tribute it or link it away. So this is why this card makes sure that you're not going to lose to Super Poly and Dark Ruler no more, because it's a way to protect Dark Angel. But even if you cannot go for the Dark Angel play, and this card alone can help you get back a few turns, potentially draw some good cards, and also be able to play because it's such a powerful flygate in this format, the top 2 decks being Runic Sprite and Tearlaments. Now let's get to the extra deck. We have of course 1 copy of Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. This card is amazing, and with Fusion Destiny back at 3, it's even more amazing because you can summon it more consistently. You can summon it with Polymerization very easily in the deck, so you don't even care about hard drawing Fusion Destiny most of the time if you want to get access to this card. Being able to pop your own Link monsters is very important for the Dark Angel strategy because Link monsters cannot go in defense mode, so if you leave a Link monster, they're just going to switch Dark Angel to attack and they're going to crush it, but this is why Enforcer comes in to be able to pop your own Link monsters, so all your monsters will be in defense mode and they won't be able to crush the Dark Angel. But again, on its own, this card is amazing. Being able to grind infinitely, reviving monsters mostly itself every single time, and popping cards, amazing card. We play 1 copy of Destiny Hero Dangerous. This card helps in some lines if you draw the Destiny Heroes with Lion Play, so you can use Wonder Driver to go for Enforcer, because there will be some scenarios where you cannot have 2 Destiny Heroes in your hand with Polymerization Fuse, but that's when this card comes in, because Wonder Driver, you can reset the Polymerization you've used to summon this card, and then you can use Malicious in the grave, fuse Malicious with Dangerous to go into Enforcer this way. We play 1 copy of Sunrise. This is another amazing card. It's the OTK machine of the deck. This card with the next card being able to go for a lot of attack points, pop cards, and boost all your monsters. Really great card, Searching Miracle Fusion. We play 1 copy of Absolute Zero. Sometimes you can even pop your own Absolute Zero with Sunrise to Raigeki your opponent's board, and if you combine this card with Mask Change, Summoning Acid is a complete board wipe, so this is the old clay of the deck. We play 1 copy of Escuridao. Sometimes you cannot have access to Liquid, which is why we do play some Omni Heroes for Miracle Fusion other than Absolute Zero, and Escuridao is the monster you're going to summon more often because a Dark Attribute is the most commonly used deck. But we also play 1 copy of Great Tornado because Stratos is a wind monster, and this card helps you play around the Floowandereeze matchup. The Floowandereeze matchup, if you're not playing this card in the extra deck, it can become kinda tricky, but this card solves it completely because by activating cards like Hero Lives, by normal summoning your Stratos, and by using Poly and Miracle Fusion to summon this card, means that you're going to have a lot of wind monsters to summon under the barrier statue to try to run over the barrier statue, and then you can navigate the board afterwards. So this is why this card is really good. We play 2 copies of Darklaw. You need the second copy just in case your opponent deals with the first one, especially now that I am not playing Super Poly in this deck. The extra deck has no space issues whatsoever, so playing a second copy of Darklaw is very easy to fit in the extra deck, so this is why you do so, and against Tearlaments, you need to have this at all times on the board in order to be able to play around the deck. We play 1 copy of Acid, mainly to counter the backer decks, but with Runic Sprites, you are going to want to pop the Fountain as often as possible because they're going to recycle it a lot, so you need to be able to pop it this card with Stratos, and hopefully if you hard draw a Cosmic Cyclone as well. And we also play 1 copy of Blast. This is to play around hand traps on Stratos, but its own effect is not bad. Being able to bounce back row means that your opponent is not going to be able to keep drawing Fountain. Even though you're not getting rid of the card, they're going to activate it again. If you just activate it when your opponent is about to draw the cards, you just put them a turn behind, so this is why this card is also really good. And we do play 1 copy of Trinity. I haven't put this card in the extra deck for such a long time, but again, I'm not playing Super Poly right now, so I have so many free space, so yeah, this card, it's not a card that would come up as often as it used used to, because you do have so many ways right now to go for the OTK, but there will be some weird scenarios where this card is going to win you a lot of games when your opponent does have a lot of attack position monsters on board. And even though I am not playing Honest Neos, 5,000 attack points attacking 3 times is more than enough to go for a game a lot of times. And for the Link monsters, we play 2 copies of Cross Crusader. Sometimes I was considering playing 3 copies of this card, that's how good this card is, but it doesn't come up often enough. Maybe you can cut Trinity for the 3rd copy, that was something I was considering, but again, 2 copies, I feel like they're enough most 99% of the times. This card gets you access to your Dark Angel play, and then you need the 2nd copy to go for the follow-up, and when you summon this twice, usually you're going for game. If you don't manage to OTK your opponent when you've used this card twice, then I feel like the game is out of your hands completely, so the 3rd copy would not change anything. So yeah, this is why 2 copies are perfect. We play 1 copy of Wonder Driver. This card helps you recycle cards like Polymerization, play with Dangerous, I mentioned, be able to go for Enforcer, but also recycling cards like Mask Change is very, very important, especially when you cannot set up your Dark Angel play. So if your opponent Super Polys your board, or if they Dark Ruler your Dark Law with something, if you have another Dark Hero on the field, then you can at least make sure that you're going to have a Dark Law on the field in order to be able to play around your opponent, because if you don't and you're playing against a deck like Tear Laments, then that's why these cards can hurt a lot, but at least this card can sometimes make sure that you're going to play around such scenarios. It can also reset your Miracle Fusion to go for another play, which is why we play more than one of the Omni Heroes in the extra deck. And the last card in the extra deck is 1 copy of Dread Decimator. We are playing this because sometimes there will be scenarios where you get debarriered, and yes, even though it's not nearly as popular as it used to be, some people still play debarriered, and when you get debarriered, it's very difficult to OTK unless you have this card in your extra deck. When you have this card and you combine it with a card like Plasma or a Stratos and you have the other cards field, by boosting all of them, you can still go for the OTK even if you don't have access to fusion monsters, so this card helps in those niche scenarios. So yep, that's the deck, guys. Heroes, again, they did get a boost from the ban list, and even though the format is not really perfect for them because a lot of good cards like Super Poly are being played, you can still find a way to play around them with cards like Dark Angel, so it's not impossible to play the deck. I just feel like you have to commit a lot and you have to playtest a lot in order to play a deck like this in the current format, because the more difficult the format becomes, like the more difficult it is to win with Heroes because you have so many ways to play around certain stuff. So if you're a fan of the deck and try to commit to the deck, you need to playtest a lot, you need to dedicate for the deck so you can see some wins, because if you just pick up the deck casually, then you're going to feel like the deck is very, very underwhelming, but it really isn't. You just have to learn all the different lines of play and you have to learn all the matchups, which is why this deck I feel like is a bit difficult. So yeah, if you're a fan of the deck, go for it, then try it. You're going to learn a lot about the game just by playing this deck because it has so many different lines of play, so many ways to play around different stuff. It teaches you a lot about the game. So I would recommend playing this deck even as a learning curve for new players and even as veteran fans of the deck, because the deck can be really, really good at the right hands. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos, and we'll see you next time.